The Uber freshman who is potentially going to be the number one overall draft pick come next summer, Paolo Banchero, he got the start. He finished with 10 points. Didn't play a ton of minutes because it was such a blowout. The game doesn't matter. The score, great. Good for them. They remain undefeated. The spotlight is on Duke basketball for a different reason on Tuesday night / Wednesday morning. And it's such a contrast, I think, for me anyway, because I was just talking about Coach K and his farewell tour and the tributes that will be pouring in, and made a statement multiple times on my show, I guess when college basketball tipped off a couple weeks ago, that I don't believe there's a better ambassador for college basketball than Mike Krzyzewski. Because he's recognizable, he's respected, in some cases he's revered. His track record at Duke speaks for itself. But he holds his team to high standards. And this decision to play Paolo Banchero, his freshman, after he was riding in a car driven by Coach K's grandson, in which they've been charged with DWI, just doesn't jive. It doesn't jive with the leadership. It doesn't jive with the respect that I have for Mike Krzyzewski. It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence on CBS Sports Radio. Please hear me about this. This is not innocent until proven guilty. This is not an accusatory rant. It's not that. In fact, it's more coming from a place of tough love. These are kids. All right, so that's part of the issue. And I'm not here to tell you that there are no college students who drink, right? I have an older niece who absolutely drank while she was in college. I didn't, because I played college basketball and I had a teammate who was an alcoholic. And so in order to support her in her attempt to get sober, I didn't drink at all while I was in college. But I know I'm an aberration, not the rule. And so I get it. Kids in college drink. But when you are scholarship players for Duke men's basketball, there should be a different standard. Coach K's grandson is 20 years old. Paolo Banchero is 19 years old. They were out on Saturday night, and the grandson, Michael Savarino, was driving Banchero's vehicle. They end up getting pulled over because he ran a stop sign. And then it sounds like they were not super cooperative, at least right away, at least in pulling over. So they were spotted by cops. And once the cops got to the car, well, then they realized that alcohol might be a factor. And so initially, Savarino was given a breathalyzer test. This is all coming from court records. And the Raleigh News and Observer is the first outlet to kind of share these details. Savarino, the 20-year-old grandson of Coach K, takes a breathalyzer. His blood alcohol content is 0.08, which is the legal limit. Of course, he's also underage, and he wasn't obeying traffic laws, so his license was revoked. He was taken into custody, according to a police spokesman. The Banchero piece of this, just so you know North Carolina law, and I didn't until I was reading further, he's charged with aiding and abetting DWI. And so he was not arrested, but he was cited. And here's what the law states. That citation, which is essentially a ticket for aiding and abetting DWI, is given to people in North Carolina who, and here's the terminology, knowingly encourage, aid, advise, or instigate another person to drive or attempt to drive while impaired. It was his vehicle. He was in the back seat, and Savarino was driving with a blood alcohol content at the legal limit, even though he's 20. So there's all kinds of problems there. Regardless of the legal side of this, I can't be the only one who instantly thought of Henry Ruggs. Henry's in his, is he 23? Early 20s, early in his NFL career, seemingly enjoying his life in Las Vegas as a pro football player, gets too drunk to drive, but gets behind the wheel anyway with his girlfriend in the car, and then makes horrible choices. At one point, is driving 156 miles per hour down a busy thoroughfare in Vegas, residential area. You all know what happens. He slams into the back of another vehicle. And a young woman and her dog both die in a fiery crash. That's the first thing I thought of when I saw this story about the two Duke basketball players. This is not about optics. This is not about keeping the media off your back. It's not about jumping the legal process. No, this is, in my opinion, about a respected coach who's also a teacher of young men, who's also training and guiding and pouring into the lives of young men, kids who at some point are going to be men on their own. How about letting them know this is not okay? And I can only imagine Coach K's reaction to his grandson. If this was, I don't have any grandkids, but if this was my niece, I would freak out. Not because I'm mad at her, although I would be mad at her, but because we all know what can happen when you get behind the wheel and you're not sober. You're driving while impaired, or you're riding with someone who's impaired. Worst case scenario, Coach K could be talking about how he lost a grandson. Thank God that didn't happen. So basketball becomes secondary in this case, just like football becomes secondary with the Henry Ruggs crash and his tragic choices that led to the death of another human that he will never get over, nor should he. I don't understand why Coach K plays this young man. Again, not to punish him necessarily, but just to let him know it's not okay because I value your life. I don't want anything to happen to you. Now, his grandson did not play, but his grandson is a former walk-on who's now a scholarship guy. Probably would have played against Gardner-Webb, but wasn't with the team. So he was the one who was arrested. But in Paolo's case, he got in the car. It was his vehicle, and he allowed someone to drive it who wasn't sober. Now, Coach K was asked about why is Paolo playing, but his grandson wasn't around. And his response is one that is relatively pointed. He separates the two incidents.
Two entirely different situations. Headlines might make it look like it's the same. It's not. So I think the decisions we made are in conjunction with our authorities, my superiors, and we're taking action.
I get all that. It's not the same. His grandson is the one who was driving who was arrested. Paolo was in the back seat. But it's just as freaking scary. Again, to go back to the Henry Ruggs situation, I wish his girlfriend hadn't gotten in the car. She maybe wasn't sober either. But it's just as dangerous to get into a car, not to mention give someone the keys to your vehicle and let him drive or her drive when they're under the influence. If nothing else, why not sit in this case, just Paolo, why not sit this young man down and say, this is bigger than basketball. Forget punishment. Forget sending a message to the world about how we take this stuff seriously. No, you could have died. Don't take those kind of risks. Don't make those kind of choices. Call me, call another coach, call a friend, call someone. Don't get in the car with someone who's been drinking, no matter how much you may think that he's just fine. I know Coach K has got decades of experience. And in this case, the athletic department at Duke will decide what happens moving forward. And yeah, it's a distinct possibility that Paolo has his ticket. Well, he pays his ticket or all citations are dropped and it becomes nothing that's on his record. But in light of what just happened, a painful, tragic reminder with Henry Ruggs, that you are literally taking your life and the lives of other people in your own hands when you get behind the wheel or you ride with someone who's impaired. Now, Ruggs was a lot drunker. This kid was just at the legal limit, but still clearly wasn't making sound decisions. I'm surprised. Because this is not about basketball. It's about teaching young men and the rest of the guys on your team that you just can't take risks like that. You just can't take chances like that. I bet Henry Ruggs thought it would work out just fine, too. He'd get home. It was no biggie. One more time, maybe. It'll be fine. I'll be careful. No, it's a risk that no human being should take. And in this case, I feel like Coach K and Duke basketball, the Duke athletic department, missed a major opportunity to send a message that these young men won't forget. It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence on CBS Sports Radio.